Hello and welcome back to the GTN Show. Now, you will notice that I'm here in the studio solo and I don't have any friends with me. That is because Heather and Mark have headed off to Lanzarote this week to make lots of sunshine videos for you guys for throughout the winter. And in the absence of any professional racing from around the globe this weekend, I do have news about a certain two-time Olympic gold medalist and his plans for racing in the future. I also have news of an endurance record of epic proportions, plus the winners from our On shoe unboxing. This week we saw the announcement from Alistair Brownlee that he wasn't quite done with racing for this 2019 season, with his announcement that he will be starting in the 2019 Ironman Western Australia in Busselton at the start of December. And this brings with it some implications, you could say. Now, what are those? Because this isn't necessarily something that is too surprising at this time of year. You see athletes who either have or haven't had a very good Hawaii, but they want to get another Ironman locked in so they can try and qualify for that race that is next October. So that in itself isn't that unusual. But what was perhaps raising some eyebrows was that Alistair Brownlee finally admitted that he actually still has his eyes on going to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games as well, which until now hasn't necessarily been clear. Well, why wasn't this so clear? Well, essentially because he has raced very sparingly over the short course distance since he picked up that second Olympic gold medal in Rio over 3 years ago. Now, this was in part due to the fact that he has suffered quite a number of injuries since then, but also because his focus seemed to have shifted perhaps towards the longer distance, non-drafting format of racing. Indeed, he raced very well at his debut at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships last year in South Africa, taking an excellent second behind Jan Frodeno and in front of Javier Gomez, we might add. Again this year, in his build-up towards Ironman Hawaii, he raced at the Ironman 70.3 Championships in Nice and took another second place there as well. But he has all the time kept his toe in the waters of ITU racing, although, as I said, very sparingly. He did the Commonwealth Games last year. This year he won an ITU World Cup, so the level down from the top tier. And he also won a European Championships yet again to add to a very long and impressive list of wins in that event for him. However, it would have appeared that with his move up to Ironman 70.3 and Hawaii this year, that his focus had finally shifted to long course racing. Now, it could be that he has been influenced by some of his competitors. I mean, just last month, we had Javier Gomez taking on Ironman Malaysia and winning that event, proving that there are other athletes willing to juggle racing at short course distance whilst managing to compete and go full distance in an Ironman. The theory being, especially if you do it right now in the back quarter of a year, that you get that qualification done and then you don't have to worry about Hawaii until next year, which crucially will be after the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, giving athletes the whole of the start of next year to focus solely on that event. But this really is uncharted territory. We have never before seen athletes doubling up in the same year as an Olympic Games. Sure, we've seen athletes win medals at Olympic Games and then go on to win Hawaii. We had Michaela Jones in 2000 taking a silver in Sydney. She then went on to win Hawaii in 2006. And then later still we had Jan Frodeno, who won Beijing in 2008 and then went on to take his first Kona title in 2015. Indeed, we are already seeing a number of other ITU athletes having a look at qualifying for the Ironman 70.3 Champs in New Zealand next November, because, a bit like Kona, it falls after the Tokyo event. But this is something that we can grasp and get our heads around a lot more than the concept of ITU athletes deciding to give the full Ironman distance a go, as we're seeing with Javier already qualified and Alistair potentially trying to. One way or the other, it could well make for an extremely intriguing first half of the 2020 season should Alistair manage to qualify in Busselton next month. Unlike Javier, who finished the WTS season ranked third and will most likely be able to take a slot in the Spanish team fairly comfortably, Alistair's ranking in ITU terms has plummeted to well outside the top 100, and he is by no means assured of getting a spot in Great Britain's Olympic team. However, it does raise the question, is he able to drag his body back up to the speed that is needed to be competitive at that level? Or will the toll of 2 years of largely Ironman 70.3 and Ironman training prove too much for his body? The incentives, one way or the other, are clearly high for him though, because there is the new mixed relay team event at the Olympics, which he could race in alongside his younger brother, Johnny. And should he go on to medal in the individual event, well, he would be the first triathlete to win 3 medals from 3 Olympic Games. So, if he is able to stay injury-free and healthy, I am not the person to doubt Alistair Brownlee and his ability to do this. So that takes me on to the question for this week's poll, which is quite simply, do you think that Alistair is going to be able to qualify for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games? And that is a simple yes or no, and you can let me know by clicking on that link, which is somewhere up there above my shoulder. And on the note of polls, if you remember last week, Mark and I asked you, do you think that if you cross the finish line in an Ironman with anything other than yourself, should you be disqualified? Well, you gave us your answers, and 56% of you think yes, you should be disqualified, and that leaves the remaining 44% of you saying no, that you shouldn't. Now it is time for Tri News. Now, I told you in the introduction that there was an incredible feat of endurance, and I wasn't lying, because I have got news about Laura Knoblauch from Boulder in Colorado, who has just broken, now wait for it, a Double Deca Ironman record. That is 20 Ironman distance event in one go, and that absolutely staggeringly blows my mind, I promise you. To the extent that I can't even remember the full distances of this event, so I'm going to refer to the laptop. It was 48 miles of swimming in a swimming pool, 2,240 miles of biking around a 4.3 mile loop, and then 524 miles of running around a 1.3 mile loop, which is just incredible to think that people are able to do that. I wasn't really very aware of the logistics of these type of events. I kind of wondered if there was mandatory stops built in, but there isn't. Once the gun goes and you start swimming, it is all the way to the finish of this entire event. It took her some 633 hours, which is 26 days of continuous activity. The swimming alone took her over 50 hours. She built in a nap in the middle of that for an hour and a half, which meant that when she got out of the water, her skin was really badly chlorine burnt, which I've never heard of before, but it makes sense when you're in that water for that length of time. She gave herself 12 hours in between that and starting her bike ride to try and let her skin settle down, and then had some 12 days of riding her bike with some sort of sleep of about 6 hours each night. And then again, she had another 12 or so days, I think, of running, where she was only getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep. But agonizingly, towards the end of that, she actually, in her words, threw an all-nighter where she didn't have any sleep because her competitor was getting really pretty close. In the end, she still took first place. There was only 4 females and 4 males managed to complete this event, which really doesn't surprise me because, quite frankly, I do not know how people manage to get through feats of endurance like that. So now moving on to something a little less light-hearted, I'm afraid, because it involves an anti-doping issue. And these are usually things that we're expected around about our pros and elites that are racing in our sport. But increasingly more often, we're seeing this cropping up within the amateur or age group ranks as well. And this story is one of an amateur duathlete from Australia, Margot McIntosh, and it really serves as a cautionary tale, I feel, for any athlete to be completely aware that it is their responsibility to know what it is that they're ingesting into their system at any time, before racing, during racing, whatever. It is your responsibility as the athlete. She had won the World Duathlon age division that she was competing in Spain, Pontevedra, Spain, should I say, back in May. And once she'd gotten home, she was served with an anti-doping violation by the ITU. Now, she says that she had absolutely no idea where this must have come from. She had trawled back through all of the things that she could remember having used prior to race day and was left stumped. She had no idea how something had entered into her system. And I'm going to read this here. It was basically containing a recently banned substance, higonamine, which was found in a variety of plant sources used in traditional Chinese medicine and increasingly utilized in the supplement industry. Now, this was found in a pre-workout sports drink that she had used. Now, she basically says that that ingredient had been listed by the manufacturer under an alternative name, and that's why when she went to check what it was that she'd banned, she couldn't be banned for, she couldn't find it. So she completely understands that it is her responsibility and that she should take, or does have to take, full responsibility. But I suppose I just looked at this story and thought, you know what, that could be anybody out there, but you definitely need to have a think about what it is you might be wanting to take, if you really need to take something, and really think long and hard about it before you decide to go and race having used it. So now moving on to a story which discusses the environmental footprint that much more increasingly race organisers of mass participation events, much like triathlons, are having to become aware of with the events that they're laying on. And in particular, this weekend there was a running event in North Wales here in the UK that caught my eye, because this is the largest running event of its kind in North Wales. Some 3,000 athletes at the Conway Half Marathon, and all of them, they were faced with the threat of disqualification from the event if they were caught littering outside of designated aid stations or water stations, or anywhere where there was a marshal, in fact, out on the course. So that's quite an interesting step to have taken things, because there's nothing that's going to force your mind more in a race and perhaps the threat of not seeing your name on the results. And this is exactly what the organisers there in Conway said, that your name would not be on those results if you were spotted dropping your water bottles or any litter that is not in designated areas. So I think this is a really interesting precedent to start, and we've seen it already at other mass participation events. The London Marathon this year in 2019 was forced to act on the fact that last year they counted some 47,000 plastic bottles that were collected after the event all around the course. So they tried to implement measures this year that meant that there was far more recycled plastic used in the water bottles, if not fully recycled plastic bottles, partly or almost partly recyclable bottles, or compostable cups as well that could be used. Other events have started to bring in recycled metals for their medals as well. So there's just a much larger understanding and recognition now that we have to have some sort of real tangible contribution back to environmental causes if we want to do these sorts of big events that we really enjoy. So now it's time to get some news about the Zwift Academy, because Heather has been getting some training in for that, and while she's down there in Lanzarote, she has been on the treadmill, and I believe that she's going to let us know how that is getting on for her.
Okay, I have just finished my very first, well, almost finished my very first Zwift Academy run workout, and it was harder than I expected. This was the threshold waves, and it's basically waves of running at threshold, 4 lots of 1 mile, but broken up a little bit. Now I'm hoping I can come back to revisit that. But anyway, a little bit about why I'm here and what I'm doing on a treadmill abroad. So I obviously realised that I've got to keep up my academy workouts. I've got to do the 6 bike and the 4 runs. And this week we're out in Lanzarote filming, so no turbo. So I thought a perfect opportunity to get my first run workout in. And that's kind of the great thing, because actually all I needed is my phone, which I've got here, and my footpod, which kind of doesn't take up any room in your luggage. So as long as you can find a treadmill, you can pretty much do the run workouts anywhere, which is cool. You just need to find the Wi-Fi. But as I've discovered, you really need to be in the right frame of mind to do the run workout, because it was quite a bit tougher than I expected. And as a result, I'm hoping if I finish all 4 workouts before, I think it's before January, 12th of Jan, then I'm going to come back and revisit this workout, because I know I can definitely do it better. But it's a bit of a shock to the system, but still a feel good factor after getting that run done. And as you can see, I've worked pretty hard, so I think I need to go and cool down before we go and shoot our next video. So hopefully I'll catch up with you guys soon.
So now for some exciting news, because a couple of weeks ago when Mark unboxed the brand new ON Cloudflow trainers, he said that there was 5 pairs for some lucky people to win. Well, I have got the list of those names right here in front of me. So if I get your name wrong, please don't be too offended, because I'm not the best with pronunciations. But we have got Joanna Kostazak, Davan Oskvig, Lee Chi Kyung, Maranga Hedawitharana, and Benjo Wells. So if that was your name just read out, congratulations, because you've got a brand new set of ON shoes coming your way.
Well, as you can see, I've cooled off a little and made myself slightly more presentable, and it's now my turn to have a little bit of fun with the show, because I've got the best bit. I have had a chance to look through some of your photos and choose my favourite ones for this week's GTN show. And to start us off, we have a picture in from Calvin in Bali, Indonesia, and it's a picture of him on his Falco V the day before his race. He was about to do the Herbalife Bali International Triathlon this year. Now, I'm normally really jealous of all the sunny photos, but you guys can actually be jealous of me this week because I'm in the sun. But it's a pretty cool looking bike. I have to admit, I haven't seen a Falco V before, but it's a beam bike. You can't see it that well in that picture, but interesting looking steed. So hopefully that event went well for you, Calvin. Thanks for that picture. Next, we've got Philip, and there's two bikes here, even in this photo, a Grail and the Grail CF and the Grail AL. So that's the Canyon sort of cross off-road bike, which is pretty cool. The Lake of Maria Loch. Description says, went out for a gravel ride in preparation for Ironman Cozumel. Slightly confused because I'm not really sure why you're riding a Grail bike to prepare you for Ironman Cozumel, but well, Philip, good luck to you for Ironman Cozumel. I think it is just this weekend. Next, we've got this picture from David. This is from a couple of weeks ago, the Noosa Triathlon, and it's the transition zone. Well, it's pre-transition zone of absolutely packed. It's a pretty cool angle just to see everyone getting busy about their transition areas, sorting their stuff out in that sort of slightly panicky moment when you just hope you've got everything and you're laying it all out. So really cool. This picture I absolutely love. This is the final one for this week from Andre, and he actually titled it "A Bit Too Excited to Get Going." It looks like he is. It's Big Bay in Cape Town. He says, after months of hard work training for my first middle distance triathlon, you could tell I was super excited to finally get the Challenge Cape Town underway. Well, Andre, I just hope you were smiling that much when you reached the end of your event as well. So congratulations. Well, a great selection this week, and we've had quite a few pain caves sent in, but I am saving those for a moment because we want to do a little pain cave special. So if you're training indoors a lot now, if maybe it's winter for you wherever you are, and you've got a setup that you're proud of and you want to share, well, do let us know. You can share it by clicking on the link in the description below for the GTN uploader and any other tri photos that you think we might be interested in.
So it's time for our caption competition, and last week Mark and I dug out a picture from the Santo Domingo ITU World Cup, and we've got a very forlorn looking figure here. Poor guy is sitting down on the side of the road at the side of the wall, having crashed his bike. Got some nasty looking road rash down one side of his body actually, so that's never something we like to see, but we did get quite a few interesting captions coming in, so I've narrowed it down to 3 here that I like. And the first one is Martin Feinstein, who says, I guess I should have gone left at the fork, not right. Maybe then got a bit confused. Second one here I've got is Yatin Dabi, who says, day one of riding with cleats on, it will be fun, they said. I'll be fast, they said. I know what you mean, it's never too easy to learn how to ride with cleats. But our winner this week is from Mirage2NR, and they have said, oh, drafting legal race. I read drifting legal race. Probably shouldn't have tried this one. So well done to you, Mirage. Please get in touch and we'll get you a cap on your way. So moving on to this week's picture. Now, as I said at the start in an introduction, there has been no racing this weekend of note. So we don't have any current race photos, but we've dug through the archives and found one that just made us chuckle a little bit. Or I certainly thought this was quite funny, because we've gotten here from Muncie 70.3 back in the summer, and I have no idea if that T-Rex managed to get through the swim dressed like that, but if they did, I don't know how they managed to swim with such short arms. And I think this other competitor is saying the same thing, because they're having a bit of a comparison of their arm lengths there, or at least that's my take on it. But if you've got a different take on it, please let us know down there in the comments. Now, if you're anything like me, riding this weekend was a little bit chilly here in the UK. In fact, I'm sure anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere actually. So if you fancy staving off the cold, then perhaps pop over to our shop, because there's a really good sale, 30% off at the moment, so you can find yourself some nice warm bits of kit to stave off those fast approaching winter days. Now that takes me to the end of this week's show, but fear not, there's some really good videos coming up later in this week too. We've got an excellent run tips video coming up with multiple top 10 Ironman Hawaii finisher Kaisa Sally from Finland, so have a look out for that one. And also, if you're intrigued to see a new bike that I've very luckily been able to get my hands on, well, there'll be a video about that coming out quite soon too. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, so please hit that thumb up like button, find the globe on screen to make sure you get all the other videos that we're doing here on GTN. And if you want to see a couple other really interesting videos, well, we've got some top tips from Tim Reed, which you can find down there, and one all about how to swim breaststroke, well, you can find that here.